Welcome to a new edition of the Around the NFL broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. Dan Hands is here, joined by Greg Rosenthal, Mark Sessler. I say new, I also say improved, boys, because we have a new format. We have 2 hours of show. And why? Because we truly now are around the NFL. All 32 teams will be discussed today. If you have a favorite NFL team, and you probably do, if you watch this program, we will talk about your team. Mark, I know you're pumped.
I am. I mean, we have been waiting for years to get on the network. It's now of a 2-hour block. Greg, I consider that just a wild coup d'etat over the network management.
We did it, Ma. You know, we finally have a show big enough to be befitting of Dan's giant sausage fingers. You know, just show those bad boys, show those mitts to start off the show. Come on, Dan. Yeah, those are huge.
Look at that.
Let's do it.
That's masculine.
Impressive.
Very strange way to start the show, Greg. All right, 2 minutes each team. Listen, it's a low-rent operation on some level because this is our clock, and I will hold you to it. And I will hold your neck with these sausage fingers, Greg, if you go over. You're a talker.
Okay.
So we're going to go through all the teams, starting with the AFC East, hitting the clock, starting with the Buffalo Bills. And let me start it this way. Josh Allen's coming off a huge year in 2020. Could have been the MVP. Didn't go his way. Aaron Rodgers got the trophy. Who cares? The Bills are an AFC favorite. A lot of people think it's Super Bowl or bust. But can we expect some regression from Josh Allen after the brilliance of last year? Greg, I'll start with you.
How about instead of regression, how about a little aggression? That's why they're giving us 2 hours. I mean, right there, that's great TV. I think they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about this at all. They have so much continuity. Like their offensive line, it's all back. Brian Daboll, don't know why he didn't get a job. He's back. John Brown might have upgraded from him to Emmanuel Sanders. Gabriel Davis, better. Stephon Diggs, the man. After watching them in the preseason, I think they could be better. I think that's more likely than them taking a step back.
I'm with you. I mean, look at, you can, if you're talking about statistically, possibly yes. Maybe his numbers are a little bit, downgraded from last year. But even like Aaron Rodgers, before last year's 48 touchdown explosion, the previous 2 seasons, 26 touchdowns and 25. So, the life of a quarterback, you're going to go up and down a little bit. But I don't think Josh Allen, the player, will regress. If anything, I could think he could become a better quarterback. I mean, he showed such an ability to improve last season that we don't know what the limit is for him.
And I love their week 1 matchup against the Steelers. The Steelers have had a top 10 defense each of the last 4 years, but you look at the numbers last year, Josh Allen shredded top 10 defenses just like he shredded everyone else. There is, if you look a little deeper on the numbers, he had a lot of turnover-worthy plays that went his way, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Was last season just one of those special years where he's going to remain a top quarterback, but not at that level. And if he drops a little bit, is the rest of the team good enough to make the team improve and get them over the hump to the Super Bowl?
This week, though, Stephon Tuitt not available for Pittsburgh. I do think early in the season, you heard all those training camp reports. I'm buying them that he looked better this spring and summer than he did last year.
Clock. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins, Mark Sessler.
All right, I want to ask you this. I mean, there have been whispers about Deshaun Watson and the Dolphins' interest. Brian Flores has been so pro Tua. I just wonder if you think that behind the scenes, I really like this Dolphins organization, but is there potentially a sort of an in-house civil war brewing over how they feel about Tua and whether maybe some people inside the building would want to move on?
Well, you got to see who's got the biggest voice in the room. Well, it's the owner, Stephen Ross, obviously. But Brian Flores is established there. He's respected. And if he believes in Tua, I think that will go a long way. Now, that said, when the head coach has to call a team meeting and tell the players, this guy's our quarterback, we believe in him. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's a smart thing to do. But it does tell you that there's something cooking. And you have the Deshaun Watson rumors and you had the down season as a rookie. This is a situation that Tua, Greg, can make go away if he plays well this month. But the pressure will build and the outside noise will grow louder if he gets out of the gate slow.
I don't buy the Deshaun Watson stuff. Not this year, not right now, not with Watson's legal entanglements. I think that was being thrown out there by, people Probably Watson's camp, and then the Texans, who have interest in trying to get rid of him. If the Dolphins wanted Deshaun Watson, they could have Deshaun Watson. He's not tradable right now, and I think they're kind of being used in that way. So I don't know where it's coming from, but the Dolphins, I'm sure, made some inquiries at some point because, they're not sure about Tua long term, but I think they're sure about him for 2021. I don't think there's any worry about trades or anything, and if he plays well this year, he'll be the guy moving forward.
I'm with you. I think along with Jalen Hurts and certain quarterbacks out there, he is absolutely on a 1-year audition because I look at Miami's front office. They are aggressive. They move boldly. And if they really fell in love with a different type of quarterback, I don't think that the front office necessarily would shy away from that. The coaching staff, different story maybe.
Up next, the New England Patriots with Greg Rosenthal.
I mean, this is like a home game where only Dan knows the time. I need that time like the whole time. You need to be showing it. As you said, I'm a honker. I need to know how quick I'm going to do it. It's like you got
just
the
wasted
advantage.
20
I see
seconds.
what you're doing. I don't care. This is more important. Like, you're the host. You got to set up the other guys to succeed like Mac Jones is going to succeed this year. I'm curious what you guys, let's start with you, Mark, just like what you think he'll look like this week against a Dolphins team who you never know who their defensive stars are going to be. Maybe it's like Andrew Van Ginkel, but they always are better than the sum of their parts. And I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot tougher for Mac Jones this weekend than it was in the preseason.
Oh, of course, because I think you're going to start to see, obviously, a team like Miami that it does a great job against quarterbacks in general, throwing all sorts of stuff at Mac Jones. But I'll tell you what, I mean, if you look at Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick, they basically told us in the most firm way possible, we think that Mac Jones will do a better job in this scenario than Cam Newton. I mean, they flat out released Cam Newton with that level of belief in a rookie quarterback. I think he's going to be very well coached. And Dan, I think, this is someone that looked really organized to me in the preseason. He was an impressive rookie.
Sure. I mean, he looked organized, and just like Tua looked good in the preseason, but now we're
Dan's
playing
not
real
feeling
football.
it.
And I just want to
not
say
rooting for Mac Jones.
that, listen, the days of me being afraid of the Patriots are over because the real quarterback's down in Tampa, Greg. But I will say that Mac Jones did everything right this preseason and through the summer, and Cam Newton's giving interviews saying he was bamboozled and all that stuff. And it's like, all right, good. Now I understand why you really needed to get Cam out of the building, because he was upset and annoyed about how that played out. Here's Mac Jones's opportunity. I look forward to seeing it, but I want to see these guys play, like you're saying, in a real setting for 4 quarters against a defensive coach like Brian Flores, who's going to scheme up and try to confuse the rookie. And you got Robert Saleh next week for Mac Jones. So the story of his rookie season has not even started to be written, even though I feel like everyone's already celebrating him as a star.
Oh, it is so on your radar, the celebration of Mac Jones. You're fine with the celebration of Zach Wilson. I saw that Cam interview on Friday, and I did think like it'd be nice to have him. It'd be nice to have a backup. You could have kept
Time
him.
up, Greg. Time is up.
Time's up, Greg. Up next, the New York Jets. Yes, the Darnold Bowl is coming up in Charlotte. It will be Zach Wilson. And I'm with you, Greg. I get what you're saying. Like, the Zach Wilson needs to show it in games that count too. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does it. But there are some mental gymnastics Jets fans have to deal with here with Sam Darnold on the other side. And Sam Darnold gets to face the Jets defense that is having all sorts of issues getting it together because they're talent poor. And the loss of Carl Lawson this summer was brutal to what Robert Saleh is trying to do in his first year. But this is what it's about. Jets fans, and I'm one of them, you need to shut out the Darnold melodrama of it all. He might thrive. He might fail. We'll see. But it's really about Zach Wilson. We have to move on as an organization, as a fan base, and see if Wilson can play the guitar. And guess what? I think he can. It's going to be fun to see. And he has a clear runway to do something.
Yeah, I just wonder, why are there mental gymnastics? Like, why not just root against Sam Darnold? I felt a relief that I have to pretend that I don't think Sam Darnold is like the worst starting quarterback in the league now that he's not on the Jets. I got to put him 32nd in the QB index going into this week because he hasn't shown anything. And I don't know why there would be mixed feelings. If it would just support the idea that you made the right decision and got rid of him.
I mean, this isn't Brett Favre on the Vikings facing the Packers. Sam Darnold essentially failed as the Jets quarterback. And by all accounts, it looks like Zach Wilson is the better quarterback, so far. So I think Jets fans who have been drinking poison for like 5 decades should feel pretty good about what's going on overall.
There's just more layers to the onion because Sam Darnold didn't fail the Jets as much as the Jets failed Sam Darnold. Never gave the kid a chance. And that's why Jets fans aren't rooting against Sam Darnold, because we really were invested in him. He seems like a good guy. He always said the right things. He was a good soldier over 3 miserable years in New York. You just don't want him to go nuts on Sunday while Zach Wilson struggles. But Jets fans are always ready for those type of rain clouds to gather over the organization. Time. All right, AFC East done. Nice start. I'd give the start a B-. Coming up next on the new and improved broadcast. Yes, look at that. Lamar Jackson, TJ Watt got his money. We're talking AFC North next, one of the best divisions in football. Up next on the broadcast. Welcome back to the broadcast. All right, let's move to the AFC North. Mark, get us going with the Steelers.
The Steelers, I think we've been asking questions all offseason about where this team is headed. I mean, Big Ben, he is old. He's a little bit pudgy. The offensive line is sort of a science experiment right now. Is this a team headed towards disastrous territories, Dan? Or do you just see another Steelers playoff team that's going to roll into January with 10 or 11 wins, as they always do?
Well, first of all, maybe a little thick, a little THICC for Big Ben, but pudgy. He looks like he's in good condition. They are such a hard team to figure out where they fit in the landscape, but I like the Steelers' chances here. I like what we saw from Big Ben throwing the ball this summer. I think they have another double-digit win season in them. But yes, there is a scenario here where the wheels fall off. Big Ben is done, and the team loses 10 or 11 games. I think they'll be really interesting to watch, especially early on. Mark
wants it so bad. He wants the Steelers to be bad so bad. He's staked his whole offseason, his whole season on
his whole life.
He's calling Ben pudgy. I mean, of all people to be body shaming, I'm surprised about Mark, usually an appreciator of the human form.
I am, but Greg, I think he has a little bit of a pudgy face. I think his frame, he does seem to be in shape. He looked very good in the preseason. If anything, I've come around to thinking that the Steelers are a playoff team, as they always have been. And the Browns fan in me, they terrorized me for decades. I don't see that not, stopping at this point. But I'll hear you on the pudgy part.
Well, what do we think? Do you think that TJ Watt, getting him in the house, changing precedent, signing him to 3 years guaranteed, is this defense locked and loaded to help out the offense?
Well, this week, as I mentioned, in the Bills part, that no Stephon Tuitt. They're pretty thin in the secondary. They had to trade for Ahkello Witherspoon, but there's been a lot of focus on what they don't have. Here's what they do have: a great front seven overall, a great defense a year ago. They went 12-4, and great weapons around Ben Roethlisberger. Like, a lot of teams don't have all that. Like, they do have the bones, to me, of a playoff team.
Time, Greg, on the Ravens.
Ooh. Finished right in time, even without that clock. Ravens, what a tough week. I had them in the Super Bowl at one point. Mark picked them to win the division. I noticed, NFL.com analysts, 9 of us picked the Ravens to win the division. 19 picked the Browns. Are you jumping off the Ravens train now, Mark? Because I am. They've spooked me. The Marcus Peters injury to his ACL is the one that really I'm worried about, that they may not be able to recover from.
Yeah, I think the injuries are mounting, and the team is changing, by the minute. And we were doing our pod yesterday when all that stuff happened to Baltimore, and they had to stop practice. I mean, key injuries, their backfield. This is a run-heavy team, obviously a Greg Roman offense, and they're decimated. And they basically have a backfield that would have looked great in 2017 or so. But I do think that Latavius Murray can still run. Le'Veon Bell, will see what he has left at this point. I just trust the Ravens as an organization to steer their way through these types of issues. So I still have them as the division winner. It looks a lot different than when I picked them a week ago, though, for sure.
Greg, your prediction season has been no less than a catastrophe. You went from on our website picking the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl to now cowering and taking them off your playoff field entirely.
That's a mess.
Because 31-year-old Marcus Peters went out with an ACL, and the backup running back is out with an ACL. Is it really so? Their whole season now crumbles from this point. You don't give them any benefit of the doubt with that coaching staff and Lamar Jackson there. Like, come on now.
I do. It was a coin flip, though, to me, between them and the Browns. And I do think the AFC North could get in trouble because they've got a tough in-division schedule. And I think the AFC is deep, where you can't necessarily count on 2 or 3 teams getting in there. Maybe there's only room for one, and maybe it's, Mark's Cleveland Browns.
All right, time. Up next, yes, the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield. Oh, what a nice season Baker had. He got hot at the end and really now has put 2 good seasons together out of 3, sandwiched it with a bad one. Here's my question. Mark, I'll ask you. Do you see Baker Mayfield as an ascendant QB, a guy that's going to get significantly better, or is this kind of who he is? Have we reached close to the ceiling? And if so, is that enough?
Well, if he is who he was at the end of last season, where he threw 1 interception from week 7 until the end of the regular season, I think that is good enough. I mean, he was a winning quarterback. Think about how many Browns quarterbacks have taken this team to the playoffs. Almost none in our lifetime, post Bernie Kosar. So to me, I think he can be ascendant. I think if anything, the Browns have the coach that maybe the Vikings should have decided to make head coach in Kevin Stefanski. Baker Mayfield is in the same system for the first time this summer into fall. In his career, it's been so much transition. So I like the way the organization is set up right now. And I think, I don't look at Baker Mayfield as a system quarterback or the, Kirk Cousins part 2. I don't. I think we don't know the ceiling yet, Greg.
And the offensive line is so good. And the weapons are so deep that you want that conversation to change about Baker Mayfield. Go put up 37 points against the Chiefs defense, which is fine, but may not have Honey Badger this weekend, and I think it'll change quick. He is a young enough quarterback and finished the season hot enough last year where I think he was already playing at a Super Bowl level. Their offense was, and he is leading that offense. He doesn't need to get much better, but we should give him a chance to improve. He's still a young quarterback, and yet you seem to think, Dan, that he's already just settling into this kind of mid-tier Kirk Cousins for the rest of the way.
That's who I think he is, and I think you can't just cherry pick the second half of last season and say, yes, he's going to be an MVP. You have to look at the whole Baker experience, which is streaky and I think dependent on a big-time team around him. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's an MVP or a Super Bowl MVP. Who knows? Let's move on. It's time for Health Check, presented by Truth About Weight. Mark, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, I mean, health check with the Bengals starts with Joe Burrow. What a strange sort of, camp scenario. And, we didn't see a lot of him in the preseason. He didn't look totally comfortable on that leg. So I start there, but the Bengals in general, because they finally have this franchise quarterback that they've missed for so long. If you are Zach Taylor, the faceless Zach Taylor to our podcast, I think we're still trying to figure out who this guy is. What do they need to do in a very tough division for him to keep his job? I mean, what is the record? What kind of progress? Because you can't just double down and have what happened last year and the year before repeat itself, winning 4 or 5 games and telling everyone in Cincinnati, hang on, it will turn better at some point in time in the future, please.
They need Joe Burrow to play well. That's it. You know, I think if he won 6 games, but Joe Burrow looks like an ascendant top 10 quarterback, you keep him. You don't mess with it. Zach Taylor got a rough hand, though, because he needs Burrow to be great this year. And he's coming off a torn ACL. And, you know, Bengals fans are all fired up, if you say that they're not looking good or they're not confident going into the season. Let's see after Sunday when they face this Vikings defensive line, which has 4 starters who are better than anyone that was on the Vikings defensive line a year ago. If he can hold up and look okay in week 1, I'll start to feel better that he's going to improve as the season goes on. But I just remember that Tom Brady post-ACL season. It was not pretty for the first half of the year, and you think that could happen with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think this is all about Joe Burrow and whether he could look healthy, look right, get protected, be in a scheme that allows him to thrive. They went and got Jamar Chase, his LSU teammate who had a rough summer, but let's not jump to conclusions too much based on some training camp practices and preseason drops. I think this is a very interesting season for the Bengals because I think if Joe Burrow does plateau, you get the feeling that they're going to blow up the whole thing. He sticks around. Jamar Chase sticks around. The rest of it becomes a big question mark. That was Truth About Weight presented by Health Check, and that was the AFC North. Coming up on the broadcast, AFC South. How about that? We're going to talk about a division that maybe doesn't get enough love, but on this program, every team does. See, that's what we're doing here. Coming up next on the broadcast.
Look at us.
Do we have a grade there?
B.
B-.
The ATN broadcast rolls on, presented by United States Marine Corps. Let's now hit the AFC South, starting with Greg Rosenthal on his beloved Titans.
Wow, they're my beloved Titans now. Yeah, the offseason's too long. Like, thank the football gods we're finally here, because over the course of the offseason, I've now convinced myself that we're sleeping on the Titans. You've had a star-crossed history with this team, Dan. Once calling them the Titans on our podcast. Are you buying this?
Buying that what? The team
we're
itself?
sleeping on them. That's like
No.
they're like large, huge men that added Julio Jones. They're tough looking, easy division. I think we're sleeping on this team's potential.
I should say, I mean, I don't have them winning the division, so I guess I'm sleeping on them. But that was more me just trying to be cute and picking the Colts. I will say that the Titans, there's a lot of things to be excited about the Titans. Of course, Julio Jones right at the top of that list, but Arthur Smith leaving the scene, I have questions about that. And also Derrick Henry, who's had 800 touches in the last 2 seasons. When does the bill come due there? It will come due, even as giant as he is. So, yes, I think we have to see what happens. And a defense, Mark, that just has never gotten better. They made some moves to address that, but it hasn't taken in the past. Maybe it changes this year.
Yeah, I think that you look at their secondary, there are questions there. The defense, as you said, I think has just not been a Super Bowl level outfit. They've relied on that offense. And the Arthur Smith factor to me, Todd Downing is in there. And, he has been in the system. He's been in the organization. It sounds like it's going to be the same type of offense in general. You've added Julio Jones. But that Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill relationship, it revived Tannehill's career. So, that is transition that I don't take that lightly. But I would say, Greg, I don't know who's sleeping on the Titans necessarily. I feel like 9 out of 10 people probably have picked them to win the division just because of what's happened with the Colts tumult-wise. So for me, the Titans are the clear division winner in a bad division where, if anything, the record might be a little inflated because you're playing some trash bags.
Trash bags.
I thought we were up. I thought the 2 minutes were up. I could just
they are up now.
I'm just feeling
Moving on. The Indianapolis Colts. Trash bags hitting hard there, Mark.
I don't know.
Should a slow start be expected for this offense with Carson Wentz at the controls? I kind of think that it will be a slow start. Very difficult matchup against the Seahawks, I think, in week 1. And with Carson Wentz missing so much time this summer, I think you might not see the best version of the Colts by October. And will they be in a deep hole by that point, Greg?
I drafted them in our podcast, games draft, and I think it's one of the most telling week 1 games because Eric Fisher might be out there coming off his torn Achilles. Quentin Nelson might be out there. Carson Wentz is going to be out there. And so all these injury problems that they've had, at least they're getting some of these guys on the field. But I am very worried. Xavier Rhodes might not play, and you're facing that Seahawks wide receiver group, which is very talented at the top. I think a slow start should be expected. If they go 2-3, Mark, with that early schedule, I feel like that's a win.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a slow start is, it's a better situation, though, than where we were, a fortnight ago or 2 or 3 weeks where you thought you weren't going to have your starting quarterback. Your incredible guard might not have been on the field. They're back. They healed quickly. So I trust the coaching staff. I think the Colts the last couple of the years have been more resilient and gone through more things than most teams out there and have shown a way to get still into the playoffs and be productive. So I think it boils down to who is Carson Wentz. If he's last year's version of Carson Wentz, a slow start would be fine because that's about as much as you can ask.
This is the team, Greg, I think people are sleeping on in the division because I think there's a general thought Carson Wentz stinks. We saw what happened in Philadelphia, and now he's hurt on top of it, and they have all these other injuries. T.Y. Hilton also out. They're not going to be a factor, but I would not be surprised if they are on top of this division entering December. I just think slow start, then get hot is very possible. Put a bow on it.
I do trust kind of the organizational bones. I trust me some Frank Reich. I trust me some Chris Ballard. I do not trust me a banged up Carson Wentz.
Moving on, Mark, on the Houston Texans. Whoa, sorry you got stuck with this one, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's what an incredible offseason, and not the good version of incredible for the Texans. I mean, it has just been a hot mess. And, I think everyone kind of just looks at the Texans and says, 2 wins, maybe 1. That's a groupthink, and I think there's reason, logic behind that groupthink. But is there any way you can look at this team, Greg, and say, you know what? Maybe David Culley, maybe the roster they've built, this is not quite the disaster scenario that everyone just assumes it is right now.
They got a lot of professionals. Like, their roster spots 25 through 50s, okay. Like, you just look at, their backfield, for instance. Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, who looked good in the preseason. Tyrod Taylor is a good running quarterback. I think they're just going to have these long, slow running drives. I tend to believe, and I know you might disagree as a Browns fan, Mark, it's hard to only lose, to lose 15, 16, 17 games this year. It's a lot easier to just stumble into 3-4 wins. And I think the Texans can do that, including this week.
The Deshaun Watson situation obviously hangs over this organization. It will continue to do so. He won't be active week 1. That's probably going to continue to be the case as the season goes along. But if you're a Texans fan that's already super bummed out about the state of the organization, and how can you not be? How are you feeling when you then trade the best cornerback, Bradley Roby, to the Saints for a mid-round pick, and you're eating the salary and everything? It's like it seems like they're going in a clear direction here. What they want to do here is set themselves up for the future, and that makes sense. But at the same time, it's not fun for the fan base, because how do you get pumped and excited? I say this as a Jets fan. I know how it feels. How do you get pumped on Sundays when this is the product that you're going to be putting on the field?
I do wonder if David Culley ever says, sits up in the middle of the night saying, why did I take this job? Why did I do this? But you know what? He also seems like a very nice human being. So,
well, there's only 32 chairs.
That's what the money's for.
Yeah. It's not just the money. There's only 32 chairs, and he's not entering a good situation, but he's getting a shot here, and he waited a long time for it. Let's close it out, Greg, with the Jaguars and their shiny new toy.
Yeah, I'm curious if the honeymoon ends at 4 p.m. Eastern this week with the Jaguars. Like, if they lose this Texans game, and to me it's a toss-up, and that like the Urban Meyer grumbling begins as early as this weekend.
Wow.
I'm gonna grumble.
So you've been grumbling since the man was hired, and I get it. There are reasons why you could squint at Meyer and arch an eyebrow and wonder if this is actually going to work at the pro level, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, he's had tremendous amounts of success everywhere he's gone in his professional life, and he gets to play the worst team in football. I agree with you. It will be a very bad sign. The honeymoon will be over if the Texans beat up on him, but I don't see that happening. And I bet, Mark, Trevor Lawrence plays really well in this game, and people get super excited about the number one pick.
I'm not sure I would look at the Jaguars and say that we're in this honeymoon period to begin with. I get what you're saying, Greg, but I'd go back and look, historically at like Jimmy Johnson, his first year in Dallas, where they had a rookie Troy Aikman. They were a terrible football team, but it's the beginning of a journey. And you've got a rookie quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who looks like he could be transcendent. So there needs to be patience. I don't worry about Sunday's results so much as maybe you do, Greg. You seem quite under a state of alarm about what might happen by 4 p.m. on Sunday.
I think it's what he wants.
Yeah, it would be a fun little story. I just wonder how quick, like you say that Jimmy Johnson, it's the start of a journey. I'm sure the newspapers were killing Jimmy Johnson late in that season. It doesn't make it any easier when you're struggling through losing. And I don't think Urban Meyer has those sort of expectations. When you watched him in the preseason with his mind looking like it was going to explode during that Saints game, I thought, like, this is a guy that's going to struggle if they go 6-11. And 6-11 to me is a good result for this Jaguars team.
All right, we'll see, Greg. Listen, none of us are big-time college guys. I got a feeling Urban Meyer probably had that face when he was never losing a game in Florida and Ohio State, too. So,
exactly.
We'll see how it all goes, and good luck to the AFC South. It's an interesting, kind of weird division. All right, we keep moving on the broadcast. Coming up next, the AFC West. Whoa, Derek Carr, Darren Waller, and friends. The Broncos with Teddy Two Gloves. And, of course, the Chargers and the defending AFC champs. Up next on the broadcast. Welcome back to the broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. All right, we're up to the AFC West now. Let's start with the defending champions of the conference, and we'll talk about their offensive line. Are we completely settled on this line as being improved? Because I know it's great on the left side with Joe Thuney and Orlando Brown, but there's a lot of inexperience. Is this fixed, Mark?
You know, I trust that the Chiefs will have their act together by the time this thing gets going. First of all, like Creed Humphrey at center, the rookie has been getting glowing reports. You're right. The right side, we're going to find out. I mean, they're going to be tested right away by Myles Garrett, by Jadeveon Clowney, and that Browns defense. That'll be a good acid test out of the gate. I just look at the Chiefs, though, and I think, you know what, Patrick Mahomes also made a comment that the offense feels completely different. They've added a lot of new wrinkles. So what team do you trust more, Greg, than an Andy Reid-run Chiefs team with Patrick Mahomes to come out and create surprise, drama, and probably chaos for Cleveland's defense as well in Week 1?
Andy Reid always has these Week 1 tricks up his sleeve, really the first 3 weeks, and then everyone starts copying him. He's been doing it for years, and this year I think it's going to have to do with his running game, because you look at the profile of these 5 offensive linemen, and they're almost all better run blockers than they are pass blockers. And I think you're going to get a little Stefanski to, a nice creative running game. Andy Reid saying, I can do that too. And I just expect a lot of points in this game. I tend to trust, Dan, their line, because to me, the offensive line is more about coaching than talent. And they've coached up some pretty surprising players over the last 5 years to a pretty good offensive line.
And it's about the quarterback, too, and his ability to read the defense and know how to get rid of the ball. And there's nobody better than Mahomes. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Andy Reid's a genius. People still copying him, and he's like in his 60s now. Real quick question, Greg. Who do you want right now, Andy Reid or Bill Belichick as your head coach, where football is as a sport?
I'm taking Bill Belichick because I think he's a great offensive mind, too. He sees the whole picture. He doesn't mess up that clock management stuff. That's what
I thought I had him, Cessler. I thought I was going to box in Rosenthal.
You tried.
Belichick. All right, moving on. The Los Angeles Superchargers. Mark.
I mean, we love Justin Herbert on our podcast. He was one of the most enjoyable things about last year's COVID-ridden season. Just an incredible young rookie. And then there's suddenly a coaching change. And I think Brandon Staley is going to be an awesome head coach. But, Greg, I'm going to throw this to you because you were one of the first people to bring up Joe Lombardi, the new offense coordinator. They've talked about bringing an offense that's going to mix a little bit of the Saints, a little bit of Shanahan concepts. Do you worry, Greg, or where is your nervous scale about what could happen to Justin Herbert in this new offense? The P scale. I don't know if we could say that on this network.
P on television, yes.
Okay, then I'm mentioning that,
Greg.
Greg.
Said it 3 times.
Okay.
4 times. I'm a little nervous just because I feel hurt from the Phillip Rivers experience that they wasted the Chargers so much of his career. And then you bring in this guy Lombardi, who I never thought really fit with Matthew Stafford. He tried to run the Drew Brees offense when he was in Detroit with Matthew Stafford. Stafford's not Brees, but you know what? Your boy, Mark, Brandon Staley, everything he says sounds smart. And when he said this isn't going to be the old Saints offense or the Chargers offense, this is going to be the Justin Herbert offense. We're just building it around him. I was like, oh, this guy's smart. Maybe we should be a little more optimistic.
I love him.
He might be smart, but he's not the smartest new head coach. Robert Saleh was a chess master. Did you know that? I bet you didn't.
I didn't.
He would destroy Brandon Staley in chess.
I mean, is chess, are we still going with chess as like that's the go-to? Hey, if I'm good at, maybe you just practiced a lot of chess.
That's it. That's
it's just a game.
Austin Eckler's health is a little bit up in the air this week, and I would like to see Austin Eckler put together a fully healthy season. I'd like to see the Chargers as a team stay healthy and all these great studs on the field remain healthy and on the field, because I think if they do, this is a playoff team, but it's also one of those teams that has been eternally snake-bitten. So best of luck to the Chargers. Up next, the Las Vegas Raiders. Gregors.
Do we think that this defense is better after the offseason? You had Gus Bradley. You had a lot of veterans in the room, a lot of grown-ups. Unique Ngakoue, KJ Wright. Quentin Jefferson's been a pretty good player. Casey Hay. It's almost like the old Al Davis, bringing the old guys approach. Do you think, Dan, that this defense is going to be better this year?
It better be. I do like that they change corners. I like that. I like some of the moves they made on defense, but it's just gotta improve. And if it doesn't, they're gonna have to make moves in terms of the decision makers in the building. and they haven't had nearly enough progress at this position, especially in the late season the last couple of years. It's just been a train wreck. Yannick Ngakoue is, I feel like, a Jenga piece here. They desperately need more pass rush. If he can be the guy that gives them double-digit sacks, that can make a big difference. So I think there's some hope for improvement with the personnel and the coaching. But, man, I've been talking about the Raiders taking the next step forever, and it just hasn't happened.
I think players like to play in Gus Bradley's system. I think that's a positive right there. But for me, the issue is, and you mentioned it, Dan, the drafting. Players that have come in and, they try to rebuild this team through the draft on defense. And Jonathan Abram, Clelin Ferrell, struggling to I think, even keep starting jobs if you're Ferrell. It's been a disappointing team-building operation on that side of the ball, 100%. But Gus Bradley, again, I think it's the kind of system players want to play in.
Beat the Ravens. Beat the Ravens. You're going to have a packed house. It's going to be crazy on Monday Night Football. The Ravens are banged up. You're catching them at the right time. Beat the Ravens on Monday night.
That's going to be an awesome scene, and I think we're all excited to see these stadiums filled throughout the league. But on Monday night in Vegas, even Mark Davis, the owner, who stayed out of the building last year because the fans weren't there, everyone's there. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And guess what? I think the Raiders win that game. I think the Ravens obviously are in a tough spot even before those injuries hit. Finally, the Denver Broncos. And Greg, listen, it's been, to me, borderline ridiculous. Your infatuation with Teddy Bridgewater. Man has been in the league 7 years and is still, only in theory, a franchise quarterback. Well, he's got another chance now. And here's my question to you, Greg. When the AFC West shootouts arrive, and they will, I know you like this Denver defense, but they will. Do they have the right quarterback in Teddy Checkdown to keep pace?
I think so. I hope they have the right coaching staff to actually be aggressive. I worry with their running backs. I love Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. They're just going to be very conservative. They're going to try to play low-scoring games. This Giants game is going to be a rock fight. I just think both defenses will do well. But I do think Teddy Bridgewater can move the ball. He moved it for the Panthers. I think he'll be in a better situation this year, be better in the red zone, better 2 minutes, and he's got so many weapons around him. He's set up for success.
Well, he wasn't very good in the red zone last year in Carolina.
No, he was terrible.
And I ask you this because if you're Teddy Bridgewater, if you're standing for him and you want to say he can be the guy, he's going to have to go out and beat Justin Herbert. He's going to have to go out and beat Patrick Mahomes because really you look at this team and you say this is a playoff team except for our concerns at quarterback. And we've had the Teddy conversation 100 times. But Greg, you do the QB index. Where did you rank Teddy Bridgewater in your QB index? That would be telling to me.
I felt the pressure. Of not putting him too high. It was like 27 or 28. I didn't really believe it. I blamed it on my editors. And what is the problem
going on
for
with you?
Rudy?
You don't blame other people. Wait, you're blaming the editors. You're putting it on the offensive scheme here. Come on, some ownership of things, Greg. Let's go.
Okay, what happened to sports that you can't root for players or people that you like to watch play, you like the person that they're not the best player in the league? Everyone you root for has to be incredible. He's a good starting quarterback. I'm not saying he's Joe Montana. I'm allowed to root for him, right?
Greg, you're talking to a Jets fan and a Browns fan. We've rooted for all sorts of players that aren't the best. But I'm just saying that in theory, logically, if you're telling us the Broncos have the 27th ranked quarterback in the league, that is a problem.
Especially
they can win 11 or 12 games. The situation around them is top 5.
And just to make it clear again, we all like Teddy Bridgewater. But we're talking about the player, not the man.
At this point, you don't. You don't like me. You don't like Teddy. You've made your points.
We didn't talk about you.
Wrap these fingers around your body and hold you close to me, Greg.
That would make me
so
uncomfortable.
Up next on the broadcast. Speed round time. We're going to share some of our predictions in the divisions, starting with the AFC. Up next on the broadcast. I want to hug you. Back to the broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. All right, let's pick some divisions. And we'll start with the AFC. Greg, get us going. How do you see the AFC sorting out here?
Not a ton of surprises. I have the Bills in the AFC East. I have the Titans. I think they're the heavy favorite in the AFC South. Chiefs winning the West. And I'd just like to point out, I'm the true Browns believer of this podcast, of this TV show. I'm the only one that has them winning the AFC North. So just lock it up. It's a great-looking roster there, Mark. Enjoy.
I mean, Greg, come on. I have been through thick and thin with the Browns. I kind of just want to see it in reality. My picks are a little different than yours, but not too different. I have the Ravens winning the North, the Titans winning the South, the Chiefs obviously winning the West. And I'm going Dolphins in the AFC East. I think they're going to surprise. Every year they're saying they're going to win this many games. They do more than everyone expects. And I think this year they're just going to edge the Bills out in the East, Dan.
You got to explain that one to me, buddy.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the Bills?
You were Mr. Bills.
Yeah, what is
Two
up
great
there?
playoff teams. Actually, there's a second part to this that I'll reveal in a minute, too, about the Bills, so don't get too worried.
All right, but the Bills are a great team, right? So that you think the Dolphins will be a truly great team this year? I guess you.
They got to
I
win
think
like
we're talking about they have like
one.
they could have the same record or one more win or something. These things happen in football. It's not like I know everyone in America has ticketed Buffalo to win the division. Things go off kilter sometimes in life.
Well, no, that's certainly true. Here are my picks. What are my picks? The Bills. Come on, let's be serious here. The Ravens and Greg, it's a disgrace because you didn't even have the Browns making the playoffs 24 hours ago, and now you got them winning the division on a different format of our programming here. But that's all right. I got the Colts. So the Colts, that's my version for what you're doing, Mark, where you probably think another team's better, but you want to get a little frisky, and football's weird. It's an oblong ball. The Colts winning the division, that's what I'm going with. And then the Chiefs are going to roll in the West.
I mean, it's you're acting like changing your mind when you're presented new information is some sort of like problem. You know, that's the problem in this country, is sticking with your opinions even when you're given more information. Like, I'm flexible.
All right, let's move. That's a good take, Greg. Let's move to the conference champions. So who will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, Greg?
I have the Browns. They're going all the way from out of the playoffs into the Super Bowl. I really do think they're like a high variance team. I know I'm kind of having some fun here. Just looking at their roster, I think them and the Bills have the two best rosters in the NFL, and that's in the AFC, and that's where their ceiling is at. It's a tough division.
You know, another problem with the country, Greg, is like sometimes you could be too reactionary and you're all over the place and you're too in the moment and you make decisions without being more thoughtful about it. That's what I'm seeing here. Browns from out of the playoffs a day ago to now playing in the Super Bowl for the first time ever. It's just a little bit all over the place.
Greg is all over the map. I mean, this
is a Mark Sessler type move. This is a Mark Sessler type move. As is Mark's Super Bowl pick. Such a Sessler move.
What do you got,
Well,
Mark?
no. See, this is the thing. You guys are all over me about this Dolphins winning the East. I have the Bills as a wild card team going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, by the way, that's what the Bucs did last year. They did not win the division.
He's trying to cover himself. This is what Mark usually does. I have to admit, I'm kind of pulling a page out of Mark's playbook by making different predictions and different plays. This way you're covered either way, Mark.
No, I think that the adversity of not winning the division, this Bills team they're tight, they're strong, they're a lot of consistency. Dan, they're gonna take that as a slight. They're gonna go into the wild card round and trounce someone, and then march all the way into Super Bowl territory.
So they'll win 3 times on the road instead of winning the division, getting a home game, maybe okay. You guys are wild right now. Here's the voice of sanity. Hi, welcome. The Kansas City Chiefs. I don't care. Is it basic? Doesn't matter. They're the best team with the best quarterback, and that's going to carry the day. Just keeping it real. Keep it real, Kansas. All right.
Tough to make the Super Bowl three straight times, Dan. It's tough to make it 3 straight times. It doesn't happen too often.
I think that quarterback and that coach with those teammates, it's that special. But crazy stuff happens all the time in our league. We shall see. Coming up next, the NFC East. Oh, it's going to be great. We'll dig into the other conference up next on the broadcast.
An hour of free content.
It's time now for Fighting Spirit, presented by the United States Marine Corps. As we hit the NFC East, we talk the Dallas Cowboys, and I'll start with this one. Do we feel better? Do we feel worse? Do we feel the same about this team after they nearly took out the defending champions, Mark?
I feel better. I thought they went in there and you saw on offense that they could compete. Their wide receiver grouping, sensational. Dak Prescott played just the way he did last year. I mean, the offense is so productive. I have questions about Mike McCarthy guiding this team somewhere deep into any sort of postseason scenario. I have questions about the defense. I think we still need to see more there. But in general, compared to Cowboys teams of old, I thought they went in there last night, Greg, and did a nice job against the Bucs team that I thought would win this game by 14, 17 points.
I feel so much better. They showed that fighting spirit. They won it for America. We watched this game together.
Well, they didn't
at our great friend Lakeisha Jackson Wesseling's house, and her mom Rhoda, she was not a fan of either team. She was inspired by the fighting spirit of this Cowboys team and started getting really into it because we all expected this to be a walk. You're usually walking into a bloodbath in this week 1 kickoff game. They could have won this game, and I watched it thinking, I don't know what the odds or the predictions were for Dak Prescott for MVP before this game, but they should be a little more likely after it because he looked absolutely incredible. Those receivers are a mismatch every week. The schedule gets easier. I think the Cowboys have to feel pretty good about what happened.
I feel exactly the same. I knew entering the season, I thought Dak would be fine physically, and I knew they were going to put up points, and their wide receivers are great, and it all checked out. Zeke Elliott's a question mark. I thought he's still a question mark after not doing much. The defense couldn't get a big stop when it counted, even though they had 4 turnovers, and some of it was pretty lucky rather than great execution. So I have a lot of questions about that. I have questions about the coaching staff like you do, Mark. I think the Cowboys are going to be a fun watch, but I think this is kind of who they are, and they're going to be about a 500 team as a result. Moving on. The Washington football team, Mark Sessler.
Here's my question. I think Washington is generating more excitement than they have in so long. I mean, Greg was so anti-Washington for essentially the entire time I've known him, and now he is all about Washington's prospects on the field. Are we maybe, though, with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, are we overrating or maybe a little too confident in what they can do on offense with Fitzpatrick as a 16-game starter? Because he's such an enjoyable human. I love him, but I also think that there's another side to Ryan Fitzpatrick where you get the, not evil, which I've mentioned in the past. He's not an evil person, but like the bad side of his playing ability that maybe things go a little wayward if you get that version of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Look, you'll lose 2 or 3 games because Fitzpatrick turns the ball over too much, and that's why he's not a top-shelf quarterback. But he's peaking right now. He's having a late career peak like Tom Brady. The last 3 years of his career are the best 3 years of his career. And he's such an upgrade over what they had at quarterback last year. That's why I don't think we're overrating. Now, can the defense be as good this year? It'll be an interesting test this week against that new Chargers line. That's tough. But Fitzpatrick is such a step up from where they were in 2020. I'm excited to watch this team.
Where is the Ryan Fitzpatrick cookbook? Where are the endless glowing profiles about his fitness regimen? Like, why does Tom Brady get all that? And Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's just like, oh, he's got a beard and he's a gunslinger. Did you know where he went to school? It's like, all right, why is this guy able to do this? I'm
7 kids. We should have more children. It would keep us younger and get us performing even better somehow.
No, we have 2 each, and it's made all of us much, much older, as I could tell from recent photos of our not-so-distant past. But I will say this. It's going to be fun watching Fitzpatrick lead a team at this age. No one could have expected it. But, yeah, it comes with its share of pitfalls, and I think it will get them in the end. Just remember this, and this isn't all on him because it's not all about the quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick has played in the league for almost 20 years and has never been to the playoffs. There's a tie to that. There's something to that.
He wasn't a starter for most of it, to be fair. And
but
he might have been a starter. He might have been a starter a year ago if they had left him in there. No Curtis Samuel though for at least the next 3 weeks. So that's a downer.
I mean, we haven't even seen that guy on the field as he deals with that ankle issue. All right, up next, Greg on the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants are 15-33 since Dave Gettleman took over. you guys are both kind of sneaky G-Men fan. You grew up in
G-Men!
New York and Connecticut. Like, why should the G-Men fan be a little more optimistic this year?
You have to understand this, first of all. I grew up hating the Giants and resenting them for their success, but then you move across the country and absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I just miss New York and the spirit of the place. So the Giants, for that reason, hold a place in my heart on this podcast. However, I don't find myself rooting for Dave Gettleman to get yet another chance, or feel like I'm invested in Daniel Jones, or the idea of this offensive line is going to actually come together in the right way. I don't like where the Giants are going right now. I don't think this is going to be a good season, and I think they're in a very tough spot and heading towards a potential soft reboot after the year. That's how I feel right now entering week 1.
I'm with you. I mean, I think I would ticket them for a slow start on offense after what happened in August. Why is their record that record? I think because, number one, you're still waiting for the quarterback you drafted to actually make the leap, a leap that they think, can he be a Josh Allen type improvement scenario? I don't see that at this point. Not from what we've watched from him so far. You drafted a left tackle that may be a bust. I mean, you have Saquon Barkley as the center of your offense. Excellent player, but he's missed 17 games over 3 years. So, the plan has not worked. And if the quarterback is not becoming the guy, I mean, everything has slowed down. Their defense, though, I think if you look at last year, I think they gave up the 9th fewest points in the league. There's a lot to like on their defense.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because the defense does not get enough talk how good they were last year. We hear a lot about Washington, Greg, but we don't hear about the Giants defense and how they carried them to contention at the end of last year.
They added Adoree Jackson, too. They have 3 safeties they can play. Patrick Graham's very good. I find these first 2 games in 5 days, you got a Thursday nighter against Washington, fascinating, because they're 2 defensive teams in a row. And that opener's got me spooked. That's like, we spend the whole preseason thinking we know something, and we don't know anything. And who knows? These are winnable games for the Giants, at least to try to get off to a faster start. I don't think it'll happen, but they have an opportunity here.
Greg spends 3 minutes talking about Teddy Bridgewater, then calls it a winnable game for the Giants. Eagles, here's what I'd ask you. I mean, we have been trashing the Eagles a lot, too, because they went through so much chaos a year ago. I mean, it was as ugly as it gets. You fire the coach, you trade the quarterback that everyone thought was going to be the guy. Are we not looking at Philadelphia's roster, though, correctly? Because when I look at what they have on offense, I see a team that I think can be exciting, can run the ball really well. They've got good power on defense as well. Are the Eagles kind of being thrown out with the rest of the NFC East to some degree? Greg.
Love those. I love those lines. I love that offensive line. I love that defensive line. And you just got to talk to a real football head like a Brian Baldinger, and he'll tell you the game is won in the trenches. And you know what? Who's got the best trenches? I'm very predictable. I always overrate the Eagles, and I do think they're going to be frisky here. I think Jalen Hurts' floor is a little higher than people think because he's such a good running quarterback. I think they'll be very competitive around a 500 type of team, and I think it's a very winnable first week to go get a road win in Atlanta.
Yeah, you have a mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You have Miles Sanders, who I think is underrated. You have a good offensive line. My biggest question around the Eagles is, do they have the organizational faith in Jalen Hurts? Will they give him some time to develop, or is there going to be some bickering in the front office and all these power plays we read about it in the offseason, about how this organization, who's in charge, who's involved, who's watching tape, what's going to happen there? Because Gardner Minshew is in that building now, and so is Joe Flacco. I don't even know what Flacco's doing there, but there's a lot of cooking. Jalen Hurts, does he have the support of the team? I'm wondering.
Yeah, there was a fresh report in the Inquirer, a 2-part series about analytics. I swear it's just like the football people in buildings, they love to be the sources and bag on the analytics. This can't be that big of a deal with this team. I think it's a good-looking roster. Like I said, the bones of like a 9-7 type of team, which they were in 2019, which they were in 2018.
All right. I'm with you. We'll have our division picks in the NFC coming up a little later. Coming up next, the NFC North, Khalil Mack and the Bears. Oh, Jared Goff's in town in Detroit. Aaron Rodgers, the MVP's back, didn't retire, not hosting Jeopardy. And yes, the Vikings. Interesting division up next in the broadcast. Nailed it. A+. Welcome back to the broadcast. We keep moving. Every team gets the coverage they deserve. And now one of my favorite divisions, the NFC North. Greg, get us going with the Pack.
Yeah, the Packers, who were locked up by both of you on Sunday against the Saints. First, like a little disrespectful to the victims of the Hurricane Ida. And then I don't even think it's a good pick. I mean, this is why you guys don't have this right here with these type of risky picks. So I guess my question mark is like, do you think this is the best team of the Aaron Rodgers era, that you're locking them up against a good team in week one?
I think they're better than the Saints. Best team? I mean, they've had a lot of good Packers teams in the Aaron Rodgers era, and they simply can't get it done in January. 13-3, 2 years in a row. I mean, he threw 48 touchdowns last year. That wasn't enough to get them to the Super Bowl. So I don't know if it boils down to, are they a good enough team roster-wise? Yes, I think they finally their defense looks stronger too, where there are always issues on that side of the ball. But I don't know if you can ask to do much more than you did the last 2 years. You've got to seal the deal come January, Dan.
Well, we'll start here. If you're the best Aaron Rodgers team, well, the Super Bowl team of 2010, they got hot and became unbeatable in the last 2 months. The team the next year went 15-1 and got shocked by the Giants, who went on to win the Super Bowl. Those are the two best Aaron Rodgers teams, I think. Now, these Packers teams, now I locked them up against the Saints, Greg, to get back to that, because I think the Saints are in a tough spot playing in Jacksonville. They have a lot of stuff they're trying to figure out personnel-wise. And, of course, you have Jameis Winston, who a lot of people now think is going to suddenly become this, like, big-time QB. I'm not buying it yet. I think the Packers are, like, when I look back at my football life as a fan, they're, like, in the hall of very good teams. I really think the Packers are very good. I don't think they're a great team. That's why they haven't gotten close to getting over the hump the last couple of years once they got to the title game. But I like this Packers team much more than I like the Saints.
They're so deep at running back, Green Bay. They're so deep at wide receiver now. There's more weapons for Aaron Rodgers than when he threw 48 touchdowns. And you mentioned the defense, Mark. I think there always has been talent there. They haven't been as good as the sum of their parts. So you hope with the coaching change. And, you know, Joe Barry, we'll see. We don't really know that he improves that side. If there's a top 10 defense, watch out. This is the best Packers team.
One thing, Dan,
yes,
like Greg trying to suggest that you and I are not like on the side of the hurricane victims. This is such a Greg move.
Saying, it would be, it would be
not
uplifting for the Gulf Coast region for the Saints to win this game. And when they listen to you locking up against them, it just feels mean.
I don't think those people would be any better off if Mark and I picked the Saints in week one. But best of luck to everyone in that area after that terrible storm. Let's move on now to the Chicago Bears. All right, so Andy Dalton, he's the starter week one. This is simple. I'll start with you, Mark. Is he the starter in week two? How long have we been going with this?
I tend to think not. I think that something disastrous is going to happen to the Bears in this game. And look at Andy Dalton, just flat out did not look good in the preseason. And this coaching staff is under a lot of pressure. I get what they're trying to do with Dalton. The only thing I'd say is in week two, they play the Bengals. I'd much rather see Andy Dalton versus old Bengals team than against the Rams on Sunday night. But they are not playing by our rules on this one. So I think he has a short shelf life because you can trust Andy Dalton, Greg, to make key mistakes. It's just simply going to happen.
I think we will see him in week two because I think you might get an average type Andy Dalton game. Now, in the preseason, didn't look good. Was not playing with Allen Robinson, top 10 receiver, or Darnell Mooney, or, the backfield was also playing backup. So I think if he just keeps the team close and he's like a veteran presence, he gets 2 starts, maybe it's against the Bengals, then the schedule gets tougher again, and it's kind of week to week. He maybe doesn't make it to week 4.
Here's the thing. Here's the good news. When you get named the starter of a football team, even when everyone else in the world doesn't want you to play, and that's going to be kind of rough for Andy, but he's a pro. He's been doing it a long time. That's why he's the glowing ginger man. I'm just wondering, like, if he wins and plays well, he'll keep playing. Unless you're Alex Smith in 2013. Yes. You will continue to start for your team if you play well and the team wins. So he does have destiny in his hands, and it just makes it a little bit more thorny issue if the Bears win, but I guess Matt Nagy will sign off on that.
Who do you think Allen Robinson wants to play quarterback?
Ooh,
I'm sorry, boys. What
question? He asked, "Who do you think Allen Robinson wants to play quarterback?" That's a great question.
I think we know the answer. I do, but
yeah, that's the thing that I'm talking about with Dalton, because that fan base after his first 3 and out next week is going to turn on him, and he's just got to be tough. Justin Fields, I guess, deemed not quite ready yet for prime time, but this is the NFL in 2021. He'll be playing soon. Up next, Mark on the Vikings.
This Vikings team, I've found them to be somewhat milquetoast over the last 4 or 5 years, especially under the Kirk Cousins era, that they're just one of these good but not great teams. We've talked about the Packers being this potential giant that could go win a Super Bowl. Give me one reason the Vikings can overtake the Packers in the NFC North, Greg.
This is kind of Dan's team, but I think they could do it too. The reasons are the defense. Mike Zimmer's been a top 10 defensive coach, in terms of leading his team to that ranking throughout his career. Last year was an anomaly. I think the personnel is pretty good. You get Anthony Barr back eventually. The defensive line looks much better. You get Patrick Peterson and some young players stepping up in the secondary. It's a good-looking defense. I think they could be okay.
It's not that crazy. This is how it happens. Like Greg said, rebuilt defense with some players that were too young last year, maybe maturing. Mike Zimmer, who's a very good defensive coach, he gets that thing coached up and it becomes a middling to good unit. And then you need to hit on your big four. You need Kirk Cousins to have another 35 to 38 touchdown season. You need Dalvin Cook to be one of the best all-purpose backs in the league. You need Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen both to give you, 1,200 yards or so each. These things all have to happen, but they're also not out of the realm of possibilities. And I think the Packers are in the Hall of Very Good. I think the Vikings can reach that level if these things happen as well. So, yeah, I think this division could be closer than people realize.
I'm with you. I think that there's a lot of parts in place in Minnesota. I think Mike Zimmer, what I like about him is he seems very irritated by what happened last year. He seemed very irritated during most of the summer into autumn.
He's always
so maybe
irritated.
There's a little bit of he is, but maybe it's a little bit of an extra irritation this time around. And I think he was very upset with what happened on defense last year, determined to turn that around. And if there are injuries in Green Bay, if anything happens to Aaron Rodgers, the Vikings are right there.
And it should be stated, one of the things that he was irritated about was the vaccination status of Kirk Cousins, and that continues to be an issue around the team. And Kirk is saying he's going to put himself in a plexiglass Kirk world. Well, hopefully it works, because if he disappears from the scene, that is a very bad situation for the Vikings. Finally, Greg, the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Dan Campbell wanted to build this team up front, and yet going into week one against your 49ers, Mark, and my 49ers, we had them winning the NFC.
It's basically everyone in the world but me.
I don't know why. We were trying to be cute. Okay, it's week one now, and Taylor Decker, your left tackle's hurt, and the guy Penei Sewell you drafted 7th, and then moved him to right tackle where he doesn't look comfortable at all. Where is he going to play? Is this the first sort of flashpoint for Dan Campbell, this tackle decision in Sewell in week one and what they're going to do?
I think it is, because, you want to build the line. I love the idea of that, but it requires health and availability, and that's not the case right now. And I look at the Lions team, and if you're Jared Goff, they have a very young, inexperienced secondary. You can imagine teams, look at the Cowboys and what the Bucs did. These are kind of the teams that are out there. They are pass-heavy teams in the NFL right now. And the Lions, to me, are going to be in a lot of games where they're down by, a touchdown, 2 touchdowns. And how do you, with their wide receiver grouping and who they have on the skill position scenario in Detroit, hang in those games? I just see it to be a very long season. They're in a rebuild.
So, yeah, Dan Campbell's in a different situation than Zach Taylor or other coaches that have a young QB. Jared Goff's not the future, so that's not what it's about. I think it's just about the culture improving and them being a team that fights every week and competes, and maybe the record doesn't translate to big-time glory, but you feel like the organization's going in the right direction, and then you bring in some draft picks, and hopefully away you go. But different situation for the Lions compared to the top of that division. All right, NFC South. Coming up next. NFC North, nice. A solid B. B plus, maybe. Now, this is the one we're going to absolutely kill. An A plus seg coming up. NFC South with a lot of interesting teams up next on the broadcast.
Ryan Suckup.
He is going to be remembered for a long time, whether he makes this one or misses it.
Got it.
They finally have a kicker in Tampa Bay.
Welcome back to the Around the NFL broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. Yes, the Bucs got their title defense off to a beautiful start thanks to Ryan Suckup. And Mark, let's now talk about the fortunes of that team. You're up on the clock.
For the Buccaneers, here would be my question. The best football team that I've ever watched in my life is the 1989 49ers. This Bucs offense over the end of last season into this season just seems to be picking up right where they left off. Can this be a team that is the equal of that 89 49ers team?
Whoa. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's look at this game for an example. So Tom Brady was basically perfect. Yes, he had 2 interceptions. One came at the end of the half, a Hail Mary. Another was a clank off the hands of Lenny Fournette. So he's as good as ever. Antonio Brown looks like the Antonio Brown of old. Chris Godwin is a stud. Mike Evans didn't even really factor into this game, but we know what he can do. Gronk looks like he's 5 years younger, and they got a great offensive line. It's all there. Yes, I think the potential is here for the Bucs to have a top 10 all-time offense, whatever that means.
I love, it had been too long since Mark brought up the 89 49ers. Had to have been at least 3 or 4 shows. Actually, I listened to our kickoff podcast, which we taped, and we included a little bit of our great friend Chris Wessling from a year ago. You talked about that 89 49ers team a year ago during kickoff week. So there's something in the air. I doubt it because they're going to get every team's best effort. And they're such like an old team. Will they be the same veteran team in December, closing strong like they were a year ago? Certainly possible. They had great injury luck then. I think they're going to be one of, if not the best teams in the NFL, but I don't quite see that 89 49ers special sauce that maybe Colt Sessler, your son, will be talking about on his podcast in 20, 30 years.
Right. Well, that 89 Niners team just stomped people out of existence. They were a little bit more dominant than what you're used to. And Chris West and I used to talk about them all the time. I do think this Bucs team, though, because where's the weakness? Half of these teams, like the offense is on fire and the defense is wanting, struggling. They don't have the men. The Bucs have both on both sides of the ball. And I think that Bruce Arians is looking at a team and saying, I can win 2 Super Bowls in a row here because the talent is everywhere. Like you listed the players, Dan. I see a Super Bowl team.
Greg, when I think about Mark's love of the 89 Niners, I don't think it's just the 1980 49ers that he loves and misses. It's the 1989 Mark Sessler.
That's probably
right. Yeah, just check out the Instagram. You'll see some photos. Where was it? Lake Happiness, you said?
Lake Happiness.
No,
yeah.
I was a camp counselor for the people watching this, and it was not at a place called Lake Happiness, just to inform you.
Glory days, they'll pass you by. Up next, let's talk about the Saints. Okay, here's how I'll lay this one out, because I'm not anti-Saints. I love the people of New Orleans. But I will say this. What else needs to go right besides a Jameis rebirth to get New Orleans back to the playoffs, Greg?
Well, it starts with the bonfire. Zach Bond, their second-year linebacker, upgrading. Cesar Ruiz, their second-year guard, who was a first-round pick, playing better and filling out the offensive line. It really is these young players. Paulson Adebo, their rookie cornerback, who's going to play a lot of snaps. They had to get rid of so many good veteran players this offseason that they need these developmental guys, Marquez Callaway, to step up. And I think they had a really good August. They are a team that I feel a lot better about after August than I did before it, because the young players look like they're ready. You're not feeling it quite as much, Mark, but I think they could be a team that surprises some people.
I do think Sean Payton loves the challenge of not only Jameis Winston, but an offense that people are counting out because they are a little thin at wide receiver with no Michael Thomas in there. For me, it's health. Like your secondary, the nice trade for Roby, but it's very thin before that. You need health on both sides of the ball. I mean, they're going to need Sean Payton to basically operate as coach of the year material from wire to wire. And I think really go in week to week, scheme-wise, and just outduel teams on offense with not the same parts they've had in the past.
This offense needs to go through Alvin Kamara. I'm interested to see the dynamic between Winston and the great running back. Winston historically hasn't been a big guy who loves getting the ball passing wise to his running backs, and I think that's the way this offense has to move. You got to give Kamara all he can handle while keeping him healthy, and not put too much on Winston's plate. So I think it's really having the support system be as good as possible on offense around him. Michael Thomas's return will help as well. They feel like a coin flip playoff team to me, Greg. Coin flip.
Kamara has been lost in the shuffle a little bit. You're right. I don't think there's any running back that's more important to his organization. Like, he kind of needs to have an MVP type season for them to be what they can be.
All right, up next, Greg, on the Panthers.
So the Panthers, we talked about, the Sam Darnold, the Jets, earlier, but I just kind of am curious, like, what type of performance on Sunday would it take from Sam Darnold to just drop the pretense, Dan, and just like give up the ghost and give up on the whole Sam Darnold thing? Like, admit he's not even going to be an upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater.
Hasn't Dan given up on this already?
I don't know. He's not really my problem anymore. From that perspective, I think he's going to have an opportunity here, though. This is going to be a opportunity of a lifetime for Sam Darnold, This is going to be an opportunity of a lifetime for Sam Darnold, who has a great support system around him, much better than it ever was with the Jets, better coaching. It's all there. It's just a matter of, does he put it all together? I have my doubts, just like you do, Greg, but I also won't rule it out.
I would say this, like, there is one media member at NFL Media that picked the Panthers to make the playoffs, and it is me. It was me, because I have total belief in Matt Rule. I think this offense is ready to go. It does require Sam Darnold having that post-Adam Gase kind of revelation that we've seen from so many players. And I think it's possible. I think that this is a well-coached team with an incredible cast on offense. You get Christian McCaffrey back as well. I mean, this is a division, too, that I think could be ripe for a team like the Panthers to rise up, win 9 or 10 games. Maybe I'm overrating them, guys, but I've had this belief in Matt Rule from the very beginning.
It's a quarterback-friendly system. I think Teddy Bridgewater was set up for success, and he was just okay in Carolina. I think Sam Darnold, for the most part, is set up for success. It's an offense that gets you open receivers. So I don't think there's a ton of excuses unless the offensive line does not play well. Like, if he's given up pressure to the Jets this week, then that's going to be a bad sign moving forward.
The Jets never gave Darnold a chance, but they also drafted him number 3 and moved up to get him because they thought they were getting a star. I don't think he's a star. I don't think he'll ever be that way, but I think he could be proficient. We'll see what happens. Finally, the Falcons. I think they're going to be fun to watch on offense, even with Julio Jones out the door. But I'll ask you this, Greg, is this a team destined for a bunch of 38-28 losses this season?
Yeah, and that's why I kind of want to watch this Eagles game this week. I think it'll be fun. I think it's like Kyle Pitts, yay, Calvin Ridley. I think Mike Davis, great fantasy pickup. And then you got Dean Pease, who he comes out of retirement. It's like that old hitman in like an action movie. It's like one last job, and like let's take the toughest job possible. And this is like a really tough job. It's going to be hard for him to succeed.
I don't recall Dean Pease giving up 38 points in too many games. So I think they're going to be a little bit better than we think on defense. And I think the offense with Arthur Smith is going to be a joy to watch. So I'm with you. It could be high-scoring games back and forth, but they're going to be more interesting than they have been the last couple of years.
I don't think just because you bring Dean Pease out of second retirement, that's going to lead to success. And they need a lot of help. Dante Fowler has to play up to his contract. He took a huge pay cut to stay in that building, which tells you how bad, first of all, their salary cap situation is a mess, but how bad he was to agree to a haircut that I believe was $7 or $8 million. He needs to be a double-digit sack guy. Like, they need him to be the guy that they paid him to be. It starts there for me. All right.
It's an expensive haircut right there.
Coming up next on the broadcast. Yes, the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up, and we will pause our division breakdowns to recognize the 20th anniversary and the story of former Patriots player Joe Andruzzi. Welcome back to the Around the NFL broadcast. A former Patriots player is one of four brothers that grew up in the New York City area. Three of the brothers are firemen who were there during 9/11. 20 years later, Joe Andruzzi recalls the day he learned his brothers survived the tragedy and how the country came together.
Looking over to my left and not seeing the towers and just seeing smoke, and it's one of those images you want to burn out of your mind, but it's there. We have four boys in my family. I'm number 3 of 4, and all 3 of my brothers are New York City firemen. I took a different road, living in Massachusetts, playing for the New England Patriots at the time. So September 11th, landed on a Tuesday. It just happened to be a dentist appointment early in the morning. Dentist had the radio on, and all I heard was a small plane hit the towers. And you're thinking of a small prop, and then the second plane had hit, and by the time I got home and turned the TV on, I saw the devastation, and my heart just jumped into my throat. I had a gut feeling that if not one, maybe 2 or 3 of my brothers were called in to the tragedy. My youngest brother, it was his first day on the job. His main focus was he was searching for my brother Jimmy. 8 hours later, he finally found him on the street. There was a picture taken of the 2 of them, hugging each other, which was truly remarkable. But overall, the day of was treacherous for many people. My brother Jimmy came into the house that night and just did this. No words needed to be said. And just gave him a great big hug. I knew what it meant. That's how close he was. He was running out of Tower 1 when it was falling behind him. He was one of the first responders into Tower 1. I can never fathom what him or any of his colleagues went through that day. But also my other 2 brothers on the rescue efforts and then the cleanup efforts, and the stories you don't want to hear, but it's something that people need to hear. People need to know history. Just people need to know how much blood was on that flag that day. To hold that high, and for me to come back a week later, and it just so happens we were playing the New York Jets, and was asked to have my brothers and my dad, who's a retired New York City cop, up there in the middle of the field on the 50-yard line. People knew my name and people knew my story, and my brothers were out there. They weren't out there for me. They weren't out there for the Patriots or the Jets, but cheering for my brothers and my dad, who were standing out there, the servicemen and women that rush into fires, into combat when others are running out. That's the type of people that I look up to, and they are truly my heroes, and holding those flags up high for them and many others. I'm the person I am today because of my family.
Unbelievable. A moment in history that no one will ever forget. That feature, by the way, was produced by our friend Lakeisha Wessling, and NFL media recognizes the 20th anniversary of the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Visit NFL.com/remembering 9/11 for more. Welcome back to the broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. All right, final division, NFC West, one of the most competitive that you will find. Mark, get us going on the Seahawks.
I almost don't want to ask this question because the subject during the offseason I found ponderous, but Russell Wilson, do you believe that his – I've got to do it anyways. Do you believe that his discontent at this point is truly quelled, or could this, become an issue again, fester back up and become a bubbling scenario for the Seahawks to deal with if things go wrong out of the gate here?
No, you know what? I think they're going to be fine in the season. I think they're always fine in the season. History tells us that Russell Wilson-led Seattle Seahawks football teams are almost always fine in the regular season, where the quelling can return. Or no, the quelling will go away. I don't know, something to do with quelling.
Right.
If they go one and done, if they make to the playoffs, which is no given in a loaded division, but if they get to the playoffs and they go quietly like they did last year, I think this is all going to bubble up again. I think it's bubbling underneath the surface. I think it stays underneath the surface as long as they don't get bounced out early in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's a pro. His focus changed the minute he knew he's going to be there. You have two all-pro caliber receivers in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. You handpicked or helped handpick the offensive coordinator. So maybe unlike Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, you got something tangible right off the bat. You were part of the process of getting Shane Waldron, who's going to run a very similar system to what Sean McVay does, what Kyle Shanahan does, and that should help Russell Wilson. Now, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think Pete Carroll might have a problem from ownership at some point if they don't start winning more playoff games, but I don't think it'll be a Russell Wilson problem.
Yeah, I guess case closed on this front, hearing what you both have to say. But they also gave him some help along the offensive line. So I do feel like he was heard, and that was the big issue. He wanted to be heard, and he was. He got to pick his own play caller, arrow up.
I can't let it go unstated, Greg. Aaron Rodgers got something tangible, too. A much better team around him than Russell Wilson has in Seattle. But
right.
Aaron doesn't seem to look at it that way. All right, up next, Greg, on the Rams.
Oh, these Rams. We're about to move into the stadium. Hopefully next week we might do this show from our office, right next to the stadium. Mark, I just wanted to kind of throw this to you. This is the last time before we're neighbors. You could even say tenants. Just get in any Rams shots you want to get in now, because you seemed a little uncomfortable over the last few years.
No, I think I've been muzzled on this front. We're going to be in the lunchroom with Sean McVay and Matt Stafford and stuff. So having sort of an edgy take on the Rams at this point is not a great career move. I think the Rams could win the division and go to the Super Bowl. They're a great team. I just think there's nothing not to like about it. Ticketing Stafford for the Super Bowl though, I want to see it happen, right, Dan? You have them as a Super Bowl team.
Greg setting up Mark to fail there. I enjoyed it. I also like the idea of me and Sean McVay or me and Cooper Kupp having Philly cheesesteaks together in the commissary.
Sure.
This sounds fun. I think there is going to be a separation of church and state in the building, but
yes.
I just like that idea. I picked them to go to, I don't want to tell you where I picked them yet. I'll share that in a little bit, but I really do like the Rams. And I think that this team is set up very well to succeed, and I think we all agree. Listen, opinions might vary a little bit on Jared Goff, especially after the last 2 years, but I think everyone agrees that Matt Stafford has a late career peak in him in the right situation. The only thing we need to see is that body, Greg, going to hold up? Will he have the health to get through a 17-game season?
It's a great question with this offensive line, too. You think the scheme gets the ball out of his hand fast, and that helps protect him. I just wanted to ask Mark, it's one of my favorite running subplots. In no way do I actually think that we're going to be pressured or that anything is any different. But for some reason, it's not just been on Mark's radar lately as we're about to move in. It's been about the last 4 or 5 years. He's been worrying that somehow our bosses are going to come down and say, only speak good about their offensive line. They've never allowed any pressures against quarterbacks.
Old double down Rosenthal.
I really appreciate, Greg, you bringing this up on NFL Network for 2 or 3 straight minutes with people watching this.
It was nice working with you, Mark. Let's move on. The Arizona Cardinals. All right, this one's pretty simple. I think Kyler Murray is superstar level talent. Can Cliff Kingsbury be trusted to help take Kyler Murray to the superstar club? Mark.
I think he can. I wonder a little bit if that offense might run out of time at some point. I didn't love them in the red zone last year. They seem to move the ball really well between the 20s. And Kyler Murray, for me, it is about health too, because when you saw him lose his mobility due to injury late in the season, he just wasn't the same quarterback. But is this a quarterback that, Cliff Kingsbury has tapped the full ceiling of? I don't think so. I think there's a lot more to come with Kyler Murray. But I would say a coach under pressure, right? Because if things went really wrong this year, maybe they run out of the Cliff Kingsbury experiment. They feel to me if teams could still go 8-8, like a totally classic 8-8 team. Maybe, Greg, they go 8-8-1, which is 8-8-1. It was one of my dreams is to see someone achieve that record with this 17-game slate.
One day. Maybe.
Someday.
They feel the team like that they would do it. I don't know why exactly everyone, including myself, soured on them this offseason, other than they're in a tough division. Everyone sort of gave up on them as this great rising team. Probably how they finished last year. Murray he's divisive. I do the QB index now, and I put him at 10 to start the year, and I got responses that's like he's way too high, and I got responses that he's too low, and I think that's kind of where Kyler Murray's at. Like, no one really agrees where he should be.
You know why people are down on the Cardinals? It's just because of the division they play in. You can't have every team go 11-6 or whatever, or 10-7. Somebody's got to take a step back. In Arizona, there are enough question marks around that team. I bring up Kingsbury just because he wasn't bringing the goods as a coach scheme-wise last season, and that's why he came into the building. He needs to be better as much as Kyler Murray is, because I think he's a sneaky MVP pick, Murray, if things come together.
Ooh.
Just the way I feel.
I would love to see that.
I like it.
Might be the third best running quarterback of all time behind Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson.
He can move. Mark, finally, your beloved 49ers.
Well, so, Greg and I have high hopes for the Niners, which we'll get to later on in the show. But, Dan, I'm going to ask you, because you've always been a little bit lower on the Niners bus, a little bit lower on the Kyle Shanahan fascination. You know that he's my favorite coach. What would stop this Niners team? What goes favorite human? What would just go wrong here? Why are Greg and I maybe totally in the wrong place with this prediction that we have for them?
Because if you look at Kyle Shanahan's tenure with the Niners, it's a Super Bowl game and then a bunch of bummer seasons. And you could say, oh, bad luck here, bad luck there, injuries here, injuries there. Okay, and that's true. He's dealt with a lot of bad luck, I think, and he inherited a team that wasn't, hardly Super Bowl ready. But I'm not ready to say Kyle Shanahan's this guy and the Niners is this team that is ticketed for glory every January until I actually see some more organizational consistency with this brain trust. That said, I like the Niners a lot, and when we talk about it in the next segment, you'll see that I could back that up with my predictions. But at the same time, things can go wrong. Jimmy Garoppolo could be a mess. Trey Lance could be not ready to go. He barely played in college. It's not all there for the Niners. It could be there.
I think they have every position group covered as a potentially elite group, except for quarterback and the secondary. Even their safety group, when they're healthy, is amazing. But you just look down the roster, the running backs, the receivers, the tight end, the offensive line, those linebackers, that defensive line who's going to tear up Jared Goff this week. I just think it's loaded. You don't need your quarterback to be amazing, and you have a coach who can give you some schematic advantage each Sunday.
That's what I like to hear from Greg. Thank you.
When I do this podcast, as much as I do it, and I hear you two bozos just tell me over and over again what a genius is, and then I look at it and I see 6-10, 4-12, 13-3, 6-10. It's just like, is there something missing here? Is there something lost?
Well, there were a billion injuries, but
I know.
We don't need to dig into that.
All right, they'll never be the '89 Niners, though, right, Mark?
No one ever will be.
Truly camp happiness. All right, up next, close things out by making some NFC predictions. I feel like we teased it a little bit because the NFC West is plenty of playoff hopefuls. But who do we like in the divisions? Who we think makes it to the big game? Copyright, trademark, Frog. Welcome back to the broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. All right, division winners time in the NFC. Start us off, Greg.
I got the Dallas Cowboys in the East, and I'm feeling better about it after week one. Quarterbacks win, offense wins. That's why I've got Green Bay too. I've got Tampa Bay, and our beloved 49ers, Mark, winning the West, the best division in football.
Nice.
I like it. I like it so much that I picked the same exact teams as Greg, so this will not be an exciting entry by me. But yes, Cowboys, Packers, Bucks, Niners. It is chalky, Dan, but I also would like to be right, so I have a good feeling about this.
All right, very good. I have the Washington football team defending that NFC East title. Like I said, the Cowboys were a lot of fun to watch yesterday, but I don't think after watching that, Washington's in trouble. I think the Cowboys have a lot of issues on their own. I think the Packers are the division winner in the NFC North, but I also think that the Vikings could give them a run for their money. The Bucks, you're trying too hard if you don't have the Bucks winning the South. And I have the Rams. I have the Rams in the West.
Not much Seahawks love on this show.
Not really.
No, I do see the Seahawks making the playoffs, so I see 3 teams coming out of that division and making the playoffs. All right, while we're here, your conference champion.
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to win the NFC?
I got the 49ers, and I feel like we blew it, me and Mark, not to, tip his pick here, but it's like, well, let's make the pick that's going to be like cute and no one's going to see coming. And then I look at NFL.com and more average, bros like us pick the 49ers than the Bucks or the Packers somehow. And I'm like, it almost made me want to change my pick. But I do think this is a talented team that can do it.
I'm with you. I picked the Niners, and I also thought it would be the kind of thing where it was me and like 2 other people doing it. It would be edgy. It would be something that generated some acclaim. And instead, it was like
Mark
27
Sessler
people
picked the
picked
49ers.
this.
He's a bad boy.
But this is the thing.
Go ahead,
Jim.
Can we hear more about the 49ers, please? Go ahead.
No. I mean, they had like 2 games last year where their starting quarterback, running back, and 2 wide receivers played together. I mean, injuries were a huge part of it, but you don't want to hear about that.
No, it's good. Good luck to them. I got the Rams coming out of the NFC, but guess what? What I watched yesterday, I didn't think about the Cowboys and how much better they'll be. I thought the Bucks, blew this one. Should have just called for the Super Bowl rematch. And on that subject, let's do a Super Bowl pick right now. We've now shared our conference champs. Who wins the whole damn thing, Greg?
I got the 49ers riding all the way. Trey Lance is going to take over for Jimmy G in December. First ever rookie quarterback to start and win a Super Bowl. How about that?
Mark, let me guess. The 49ers.
Yes.
I have them over the Browns.
I do have the 49ers. Over the Browns, interesting. I have the Niners over the Bills. As I mentioned, the Bills will not win the East, but they will go to the Super Bowl and get nipped in heartbreaking fashion. And everyone keeps telling me this is Chris Berman's pick from like the 90s. I get that, but this is not the 90s. This is 2021.
Wish it was 1989, though. That would be cool. I have the Chiefs getting back over the mountaintop. Patrick Mahomes has an historic season, and they take out the Rams in the Super Bowl. That would be cool. That was fun. 2 hours of talk. Everybody enjoy the football.
We did it.
It's great. We're here. Enjoy it. Come back next week. We'll do this again. Peace.